Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you. Today we're going to make tomato bisque. And we're going to make it mostly from our home canned ingredients. Here are the ingredients. You might want to pause and write these down. Now let's get cooking. You know, I'm mostly making bisque today because I have a basement full of canned tomatoes from last year and I'm planting tomatoes, so I have to use them. So it's a quart of tomatoes, a quart of my turkey bone broth, and this is a half pint of homemade tomato paste. This is my 3-quart Lodge enamel Dutch oven, a half stick of butter that I'm melting. Later you're going to see I wish I'd started out with a 5-quart. I have here a mirepoix, and the ingredients are on the list. We're going to put this in and stir it around, and we don't want to cook it too much. We're not going to brown it. We just want to kind of sweat the vegetables and get them tender. Oh yeah, and a very important direction. Make sure you get all the paper off the butter. This is only going to take a minute or two. We don't want them to brown too much. Just soften up, get a little tender. Adding a little bit of salt at this point, a good healthy sprinkle, will help sweat these vegetables. Help them let go of their liquid and their flavor and their aroma. Well, this looks right, and it sure smells right. So I'm going to put in half teaspoonful of cumin and 1 clove of garlic. You can use more or less garlic if you like, but I recommend you not overdo. It kind of overpowers the tomatoes. Let's give it a good stir. Now we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. Here's my turkey bone broth. I have a video on how to make this and can it. I make a lot of this over the period of a year, especially right after Thanksgiving. Give that a good stir. Then I'm going to add a quart of my tomatoes. These were hot pack crushed. Any tomatoes will do. And of course, you know, you can use grocery store ingredients in these. A can of crushed or whole tomatoes will work just fine. I just happen to have lots of canned tomatoes and I need to use them up. I'm going to add a half pint of my home canned tomato paste. This is optional, but it gives good color and richness of flavor. I canned this for the first time this year from the National Center's directions. I'm really glad I did. I'm going to do plenty of it next year. This is something I use. Next we add a cup of rice. This is just cheap long grain rice. You can use any you like. Basmati might bring some flavor, but our flavor's coming from other things, so any rice will do. If you're using a long cooking rice, you might have to add just a little bit of time to our simmering time. Once all your ingredients are in, turn your heat up. You want to bring this to a good simmer. Once you've got a good simmer going, set your timer for 25 minutes. We're going to let this sit here at a low simmer for 25 minutes. Adjust your heat if you need to, and stir pretty often. And excuse any barking you hear in the background. That's my dog Bobby. About halfway through the simmer, I want to give it a taste. Make sure we have enough salt, pepper. And I'm gonna emphasize to stir. I feel just a little bit of sticking on the bottom of this because you know the rice falls to the bottom until it gets done. So I know I've got just a tad of scorching. I don't think it will affect the taste, but be careful. So now you're going to see why I wish I had started with a 5-quart. Putting my immersion blender in, I'm going to blend all this up. I turned the heat off, by the way. And this is going to take a couple minutes, and it can get messy. And I was right. Just a couple of the rice grains scorched just a little bit. But I've tasted it. I don't taste any scorch. I wish that I had been more diligent in my stirring or turned my heat down. But, you know, no harm, no foul. It tastes wonderful. And now I'm going to adjust for salt and pepper. And I can add herbs if I like. This tastes wonderful, but if anything would make it taste better, it would be a cup of heavy whipping cream. So we're going to stir that in. See my little mess over there on the right from the blender. Should have used a 5-quart. So I've got this on low heat, just going to bring it back up to temp. It's almost done. I'm going to taste now for sugar, for sweetness, because tomatoes vary. And if you need to, you can add a tablespoonful of sugar or Splenda. And now's the time to do that. It didn't taste quite sweet enough, and I'm going to add a little more salt. And I know that makes no sense, but it's true that sometimes adding salt helps the natural sweetness come through. And a little black pepper. Or a lot of black pepper. This is freshly ground black pepper. And it does need just a little more sweetness. So I'm going to add in a tablespoonful of Splenda. You can use regular sugar. You could even use brown sugar, which I think would bring something wonderful to this. So we're back up to heat here. I'm going to take one final taste. And then I'm going to stop because it doesn't need another thing. Let's plate this up. See what we've got. Then I can clean my stove. So let's dress this up a little bit. That's a tiny little sliver of butter. And I'm going to move a knife through it. Then you can add a little chopped chives or little tops of green onions. This is some of my dried basil from my garden. And then traditionally a tablespoonful of heavy whipping cream on the top. And we're going to pretty that up just a little bit by running a knife through it. And you can make any kind of pattern you want. But, you know, I just think that's so pretty. And you know it's going to add to the flavor. So there you have it. Pretty and yummy and made from your home canned ingredients. Let's taste. This tastes great. And my little carelessness with a little bit of scorch didn't affect it at all. Lucky for me. Try this. I think you'll like it. It's pretty easy. You'll use up your canned goods. Thank you for joining us. Where's my grilled cheese?